Good evening and welcome to Transition Talks Tuesdays. This is our fall 2024 version. My name is Tim Markle. I'm director of the Youth Health Transition Initiative. Transition Talks Tuesdays is a project of the Youth Health Transition Initiative. We are out of the Waisman Center, funded through Title V, Department of Health Services. This session, this season, this fall 2024, is being presented in partnership with the Children's Resource Center South and the Greater Wisconsin Autism Society, the Autism Society of South Central Wisconsin, and the Autism Society of Southeastern Wisconsin. We are excited that all three Autism Society affiliates are promoting this series as well as partnering with us. I am excited tonight. This is important information that we're going over on the Aging and Disabilities Resource Center, which we call your next step partner. So tonight we're going to learn what services the ADRC provides, as well as why it's been called like the gatekeeper of adult programs. And I am excited because for like 3 or 4 years, I've been inviting Jim and Quinn to join me and talk about the ADRC. And they have last names, but I just like calling them Jim and Quinn. It just makes my life happier. And so I'm going to turn it over to Jim and Quinn, going to start sharing my screen, and we'll get going after you guys introduce yourselves a little bit more.
Great. So I'm Quinn Hause. I am the Disability Benefit Specialist at the ADRC of Sauk County, and I have been the DBS since 2014.
And my name is Jim Pritkow. I am an ADRC specialist and social worker. One of my primary roles is to work with youth who are going from the children's world of services to the adult world of services, along with other various tasks that we do at the ADRC.
So for those of you who don't know what the ADRC is, our mission is that the Aging and Disability Resource Center is dedicated to working with adults and families who are affected by aging, disability, mental health, or substance abuse issues. We provide information and access to services and enhance their quality of life. So for this presentation, we are focusing on youth who are transitioning into adulthood, but just know that the ADRC does serve everyone from 17 years, 6 months through death, basically. So we do a lot of different things.
Okay. So I just want to point out also that there is an ADRC in every county in the state of Wisconsin. Some ADRCs may be consortiums where they are kind of grouped together with 3 or 4 other counties. Others are standalone. The ADRC of Sauk County used to be with 3 other counties, and we were called the ADRC of Eagle Country. Several years back, we broke away from that consortium and are now a standalone ADRC. But it's important to know that all of you have an ADRC in your county. So when we talk about after high school and turning 18, we really look at a bunch of different things at the ADRC. Transition being one of them. We look at publicly funded programs and services. And then we also talk about integrated employment. So we'll move on to the next screen or the next slide. So an Aging and Disability Resource Center is a single point of contact for information and assistance on issues affecting people with disabilities, regardless of income. So the ADRC works with anybody who might have very few resources to people who have as many resources as somebody could ever have. So income does not affect who we work with. We work with everyone. The ADRC is a place to call for students, parents, and teachers with disability questions related to adulthood. And we'll get into a lot of that in our discussion tonight. The ADRC provides accurate, unbiased information related to living and working with a disability. The ADRC is a county department, so we aren't in selling or promoting different resources over another. We are completely unbiased. We don't have any stake in whatever services you may or may not choose. The ADRC services can be provided in the home, in the office. I've attended IEP meetings, telephone, through a home visit, and thanks to COVID, through Zoom. So So we are very versatile in how we provide our services. Our best practice is to meet with families in the home, but at times that might not be the best thing. So we are very flexible in how and where we relate or we meet with people in the community. Okay, go on to the next slide. All right, so if you know who the guy in the leather jacket is, that's you're dating yourself, but that would be the Fonz, and from the '70s sitcom Happy Days. But so now the question is, I'm turning 18. What's going to happen? What do I do? Well, the good news is you have the ADRC in your back pocket. Okay, we'll go to the next screen or the next slide. So when we talk about transition, there are some key players. And I want to point out that this is not an all-inclusive list. Anybody in the young adult's life can be part of that transition plan, whether it be parents, teachers, maybe case managers, family friends. I've had clergy at the table. So really, it just depends on who's involved in that child's life can be active players in our transition process. So this is not an all-inclusive list. Okay. So when we talk about transition, transition is the movement from, as I said, the children's world of services to the adult world. And when we look at that, this little diagram here kind of shows some of the people that and agencies that you might be working with to get to a point where you are where you want to be as a young adult. So obviously we work with parents, with guardians, we work with teachers in schools. We talk with Social Security and DVR, then also the ADRC, and we help you decide as to what's the best course of action for you in your transition into adulthood. Okay. So these are a few important milestones that happen at the age of 18. One thing that we look at is we resolve the issue of guardianship and related alternatives. So that's one of our pillars that we talk about in these presentations. We want you to make sure that you understand your adult rights and responsibilities. So what responsibilities do you have now that you're an adult? We help you apply for Social Security, whether it be SSDI or SSI, medical assistance, and any other public benefits that you might be eligible for and interested in receiving. And we also can give you personalized information directly from the Aging and Disability Resource Center. We understand that no two people are alike, no two situations are the same. So our services are very individualized based on that young adult's hopes and dreams and how we're able to help in those areas. Okay, we'll go on to the next. All right, so here's kind of the meat of our presentation tonight. When we talk about transition, the ADRC really focuses on 3 different areas. We look at legal decision-making, Social Security disability, and the long-term care programs. So those are essentially our 3 pillars that we focus on in transition. Now, again, like other things, this is not an all-inclusive list. If there are special situations or special things that need to be done, we also help with those areas as well. So this is kind of our outline for our evening tonight. Okay, so going on to the first one, we're going to talk about guardianship and legal decision-making. So first of all, guardianship is a court-ordered type of protection that can be put on somebody so that they have somebody that can manage for, let's say, their finances or their health care. When we talk about guardianship, there has to be a finding of incapacity by the court. If the judge says, yes, this person is unable to make decisions on their own, meets the statutory requirements for guardianship, then a judge would order that person to have somebody put in place to make decisions for them. That person can either be the guardian of person or guardian of estate. Sometimes it can be the same person that does both those, or sometimes it could be different people. It really depends on the situation and what the judge orders. Guardianship is most restrictive as far as legal decision-making goes. It is one that we used to use years back quite often, but now we've kind of scaled back a little bit And it's a good thing because it is most restrictive. So, so we do look at other areas that we can maybe meet somebody's, needs without having to go to the extreme of guardianship. Obviously, guardianship has its place and is a very good tool for a lot of people, but it isn't the answer for everybody. So when we talk about that, those other options, we can look at some of the things that are listed underneath guardianship. So one option might be conservatorship. Conservatorship, basically, the person asks the court that they would have somebody oversee their finances for them. The nice thing about conservatorship is there doesn't have to be a finding of incapacity. So the judge could just say, yep, I understand that you would like somebody to look over your finances. So then the judge appoints somebody to oversee that person's finances for them or their estate. So that is kind of the next in the succession of restrictiveness. Then after that, we look at a representative payee. A representative payee is usually put in place by Social Security. That representative payee then would manage that person's finances that they receive through Social Security. So that person may actually receive that person's monetary benefits every month. And then that person makes sure that all their bills are paid, that they have spending money, that they have what they need. So that's representative payee. Now, the next one that we look at is supported decision making. This is relatively new, and it's kind of a nice middle ground between guardianship and a couple of these other ones below it. Supported decision making is really a contract that the person, the young adult, can make with an adult in their lives to help them make decisions. For example, if that young adult wants let's say, for example, a parent to help them in making decisions in their healthcare, that person can do a supported decision-making tool appointing that parent to kind of be at the table when healthcare decisions are made. So what it does is it gives that person the ability to have somebody with them, but ultimately the ultimate decision still goes along with that young adult. They still make the final decision, but they give legal permission for somebody to be at the table with them while they're doing that. And it can be very specific to certain situations. Say, for example, healthcare or their finances, or maybe purchasing a car, or obtaining, a license or something like that. So it can be very specific. And as I said, it is a nice new tool that's out there. Okay, then we go down to healthcare power of attorney, healthcare power of attorney and financial power of attorney. These are tools that everybody over the age of 18 should have. A power of attorney for healthcare only becomes activated once two doctors or qualified professionals have determined the person incapacitated, meaning that the person who filled out the document can no longer make decisions, and two doctors have confirmed that. Only at that point in time, then, does that document actually take effect, and then that person who they nominated in that document then can make decisions for them. So as I said, everybody over the age of 18 should have one of those documents in place. The financial power of attorney sometimes is a little different than healthcare, and many times the financial power of attorney becomes activated at the time of signing. That doesn't mean that that person automatically takes over somebody's finances, but it opens the door down the road for somebody to kind of step in and make financial decisions once that person wants them to or is unable to. And then when we get down to the kind of the last legal financial thing that we can look at, and that's dual signatures on accounts. So basically that's just adding somebody to your savings or checking account that can maybe help you, maybe cash a check for you, sign and pay your bills. So basically just a very limited type of assistance that you can get with your finances. So as I said, there's a lot of different things that can be looked at when we talk about legal decision making, and the ADRC can help you in determining what makes the most sense for you and your young adult as you move into after you move into the world of adulthood. And now I will turn it over to Quinn.
And Jim might mention later that when every ADRC has their own referral process, but Jim works with the schools quite frequently. As he mentioned, he goes to IEPs and things like that. We have a really good working relationship with the schools in Sauk County, and so they do tend to make referrals to us or have the families call around 17 years, 6 months. And then Jim will do a referral to myself or my counterpart, Holly Schaefer. I serve the eastern part of the county. She has the western part of the county. Some ADRCs only have one disability benefit specialist. Others have several. But in our county, then a referral is made, and I will speak to the family because typically that child is still under the age of 18. And we talk about what the next step is. Many times, obviously, a referral is coming to me because someone wants to apply for disability. But we talk about health insurance. Many times parents say, well, they're currently on my insurance, or, I don't know what they're going to do for insurance when they turn 18. So we talk about medical assistance, commonly known as Medicaid, Title 19, the Forward Health Card, Badger Care Plus. And basically, medical assistance, though, helps pay for doctors, prescriptions, transportation, hospital stays, personal care assistance. So it's something that we talk about only because many times families have questions about health insurance and what the next step is when their child turns 18. Also, we discuss that if we're going to apply for disability, for most young adults, they are going to probably qualify for SSI, which is the supplemental security income. And so if someone becomes eligible for SSI, they automatically have Medicaid tied to it through the federal system. And so that's another thing that we talk about quite frequently. Students receiving disability benefits such as SSI, or maybe they're drawing off of a parent, we discuss the fact that, okay, your child is already receiving benefits, or, they're drawing off of a parent, or because a parent is disabled, or a parent has passed away. Sometimes I work with young adults whose parents are already retired. And so, we have a lot of discussion about, each individual situation and whether or not it makes sense that you're going to work with me directly to help start the process, or if we need to follow up with the Social Security Administration to talk about reapplying for benefits at the age of 18. Because if I'm working with someone who's on SSI already as a child, and that means they've already been deemed disabled as a child, and there are new rules, different rules looked at when someone becomes 18. And so Social Security Administration does an age 18 redetermination. And in our county, I'm more than willing to help with that paperwork, but it's just a little different than starting the process at 18. So again, when I get a referral from Jim, there are a lot of things that we discuss. We go through a lot of different, scenarios just to see what is going to work best for your young adult. All right, you can go on to the next one. So I touched on a few different things here, and I just want to explain the differences. When people say, I need to apply for disability, there are different forms, financial forms of disability. So for example, Social Security Disability Insurance, SSDI, that is based on your work history and what you've paid into the Social Security Administration through your Social Security and FICA taxes. So when I'm working with a young adult, many times they don't have a lot of work history at all, and that's to be expected. They're still in school. Maybe they've just started working with DVR and are, doing a trial work. But many times, a lot of the young adults that I'm working with don't have enough work credits. But I still need to discuss SSDI because sometimes I will find out that a parent has been deemed disabled. And so then there are rules that the federal government has in play that if a young adult is found disabled prior to the age of 22, they're able to draw off of a parent's Social Security disability record. So again, people will say, I want to apply for disability. And many times we are actually looking at SSI, the supplemental security income, which is needs-based. It doesn't require any work history or work quarters at all. As I mentioned, Medicaid is tied in with it immediately if you are found disabled and are on SSI. The one thing about SSI is many times when I'm talking to families and young adults, I have to make sure that that young adult wanting to apply doesn't have more than $2,000 in assets. And some of you might be thinking, well, my child doesn't have any assets. But sometimes I run into situations where maybe a grandparent has left some money after they passed away. It's possible that sometimes after a graduation party and they get cards with money in it, they end up with more than $2,000 in assets. I have some young adults who are driving and they have a vehicle, which isn't counted as an asset, but we still need to disclose that to Social Security. So we do a lot of talking about the two different programs where when someone is meeting with me, we still apply for both of them. It's Social Security's rule. They want us to apply for SSDI because the online application that I help an individual do asks about doctors and medications and work history and all of that. And it's submitted to the local Social Security office. And then they are the ones who look to determine whether or not that young adult has enough work credits. Or if we know that they have a parent who is disabled or a parent who has passed away, then we make sure we list that information so that they can, file the right application regarding Social Security disability. When we're talking about Social Security disability, Medicare is provided 2 years after someone is deemed disabled and goes on Social Security disability. Now, there are a few nuances, but those are rarely matter when I'm working with young adults. Those might be for people who have been diagnosed, for example, with ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, or have end-stage renal failure. But I do put it on this slide because if I'm working with a young adult who's going to be drawing off of a parent's record, we do have to discuss Medicare and the fact that they will become eligible for Medicare at a much younger age than a lot of other individuals. And again, SSI, though, is primarily what I help young adults apply for. And so both of these programs, SSD and SSI, have the exact same medical criteria. So when a referral is made to me and we're able to apply the month after the young adult turns 18 per Social Security's rules, then we do both applications. And typically, though, like I said, we're looking at the SSI piece. And both of them require the same medical. And then after that, Social Security determines, which one you're eligible for. If it's SSI only, currently for 2024, the maximum federal amount is $943 per month. And then if Social Security Administration feels that the young adult is not paying their fair share of expenses, so rent, utilities, things like that in a household, then they will reduce it accordingly. And if they say that the young adult is living in the household of another, then the maximum is $712.45. So just to give you an idea, many times I'll have young adults who start out at that lower amount because they don't have any income coming in. And as soon as they're found disabled, the parents will start charging, a room and board or a rent amount, having them pay for their own cell phones, helping pay for some of the utilities. And then we just follow up with Social Security Administration and say, now they're paying their fair share. And Social Security will increase it to that higher amount of $943 a month. So again, the $943 per month is the federal SSI amount. In the state of Wisconsin, Wisconsin also says that if you get $1 of federal SSI, you are eligible for $83.78 a month for the state SSI. And then if your child, your young adult, has some exceptional needs and they have at least 40 hours a month of care needs in home, which can be evaluated by either one of the ADRC specialists, such as Jim, or if they're enrolled in a program called Family Care, their case manager. But basically, the state says if their needs are so exceptional, so high where they feel like extra help is needed, they will provide an additional $95.99. And that again is a state SSI supplement. So again, those are kind of the things we talk about because young adults really aren't sure, what they might be eligible for. There's a lot of different nuances depending on if like a parent has been deemed disabled or a parent has passed away, if a parent, is retired. So again, every situation is different, and I just want you to know that it's the things that a disability benefit specialist will be asking you to make sure that they're helping your young adult get the right services and the right program that's for them.
So Quinn, before we move on, we do have a couple of questions in the chat. If you're able to, I don't know if you can access the
Yep.
chat with your screens.
Yep.
Okay.
So Julie had asked, if my child gets Social Security benefits because her father is older and retired, does she apply for adult benefits before or after she is 18? Great question. So Social Security Administration will not let a child apply until the month after they turn 18. So even if she's receiving benefits now, they should be sending paperwork ahead of time to you. But if she's not on benefits at all and wants to draw off of a parent, then it would be the month after they turn 18. I hope that answers your question. And then Noah asked, is there a cap of monthly income when working? There is, and it all varies on which program you get. So if you're receiving Social Security Disability Insurance, SSDI, it gets a little confusing, but basically the first question Social Security always asks is, are you currently working? And if the answer is yes, and you're earning more than $1,550 gross per month in 2024, they won't even look at step 2 as, is your medical condition severe? However, a lot of young adults are not earning that, or if they have some summer jobs, there's some of their income that's excluded while they're in school. It gets very complicated, and it's definitely something that you would want to talk to Social Security or the DBS regarding. But if you are on SSI, again, it's confusing because SSI maxes out at $943. But yes, your income for SSI, if you work, basically every $2 that someone earns, $1 of the SSI is taken away. But if you're in high school or in a 18 to 21 program, there are some student exclusion exceptions. So then sometimes they don't count some of that income. So again, very complicated. And I work with I've been working with recently quite a few like 21, 22-year-olds who had been in school, had been working, and were on SSI getting the full benefit, had been working and making over the allotted amount. And once school ended, they didn't realize that they would be losing their SSI because they had never experienced that before. But because they were students and there is, benefit of working and being on benefits at that same time, that's something that should definitely be discussed with your disability benefit specialist as well.
Okay. All right. Any other questions on Social Security? If not, we'll move on to our third pillar that we look at, and that is the long-term care programs. So up on your screen is kind of a little flow chart to show how that all happens. One of the biggest takeaways of the night is to know that the ADRC can start working with young adults at 17 years, 6 months. So you don't have to wait to be 18 for the ADRC to start working with you. We actually encourage young adults to work and parents to make those referrals at 17 years, 6 months, because that gives us some time to do what's on your screen, and that's kind of working through the adult long-term care program eligibility process. So just kind of going through our little flow chart here. We start 17 years, 6 months. You make a call to the ADRC. At the ADRC, you will receive what we call a long-term care functional screen. That screen looks at what that young adult can do and what that young adult might need some assistance with. Depending on how they score on that screen, then determines their functional eligibility. Now, the other thing that the ADRC looks at is Medicaid. The long-term care programs are funded through Medicaid. So we need at the ADRC to find a Medicaid source once that child turns 18. That can be in the form of Katie Beckett, which some of you might have heard about. That is a form of Medicaid that is for children, and that Medicaid actually carries through to age 19, which gives us a nice cushion of time that we can make that transition into a long-term care program while we're waiting for that SSI Medicaid that Quinn talked about to come through. So it's kind of like a bridge Medicaid. So one of the things that I would encourage you to talk with your, if you're in the children's long-term support programs, talk with your case manager about the possibility of Katie Beckett, because that makes a really nice transition of Medicaid for when you are at this point in your life and looking at the adult programs. One of the other options we look at for Medicaid is Badger Care. At age 18, that child can basically create their own case in the Badger Care system, and depending on their income then, they could also qualify potentially for Badger Care. Badger Care is another form of Medicaid that can help pay for the long-term care programs. Again, both Katie Beckett and Badger Care are usually just bridge Medicaids until that SSI comes through from Social Security that your elder or your disability benefit specialist will help you with. Once that comes through, like Quinn said, then that comes with Medicaid. Either the Badger Care or the Katie Beckett fall off, and then you have that SSI Medicaid then to pay for your services essentially for the rest of your life if you maintain eligibility. So when you're at the ADRC and we've done our assessment, our functional screen, and we say, yep, you're functionally eligible, and we can confirm that you have a Medicaid source, whether it be Badger Care or Katie Beckett in most cases, then we sit down with you and we talk to you about the different programs that you can enroll with in the long-term care programs. Now, here's where counties make a difference, because each county has different agencies and programs that you can pick from. So, with that, we'll go on to the next slide.
Okay, we
And
do
we'll
have a
talk
cou-
about,
we have a couple of questions in the chat that I didn't know when you might want to.
yeah, well, we can hit those, sure.
Okay, thanks, Jim.
Okay, so what if
Sure.
your child is already on SSI, Candy asked? Quinn?
So with SSI, if your child has already been deemed disabled prior to the age of 18, receiving SSI benefits, Social Security Administration does what's called an age 18 redetermination. Now, they've gotten a lot better about sending those forms out typically about a month prior to your child turning 18. And it would be a disability report and a release of information so that they can gather medical records from any of the doctors you listed on the disability application. Because again, children's disability, though sometimes, is the same as an adult disability, there are some changes. And so they need to determine if your child who was on SSI still meets the adult listings for SSI purposes. But they do have up until the age of 19 to complete those age 18 redeterminations. So some Social Security offices may not get them out as soon as they'd like, but they do have up until their 19th birthday to complete those age 18 redeterminations. So that's one of the things that, you should know about. And I just want to point out that there is a 5-step sequential process that Social Security follows. So that is something that a disability benefit specialist will explain as well, because I do have some young adults who are working or, want to work, aren't interested in applying. And so we talk about the fact that the first question is, are you currently working? If the answer is yes, and you're making less than $1,550 gross per month, we look at step 2. Is your medical condition severe? Meaning it's going to last at least a year, or it has lasted at least a year. Now, when we're working with young adults, typically it's because they have a diagnosis, at birth or, early childhood. And of course, they've had it for their entire life. But we also sometimes work with people who, say, well, I'm going to have carpal tunnel surgery. Does that, is that considered a disability? Typically not, because it's not going to last for at least a year. Third question is, do you meet a listing of impairments? And I have some young individuals who might have, some type of muscular dystrophy, which automatically is considered a diagnosis under step 3, meaning that their condition is so significant, so severe, Social Security knows that they will be found disabled immediately at that step. But many young adults don't have meet a listing of impairments at step 3. So Social Security goes to step 4 and looks to see if they have done any work. Maybe they are working with DVR. Maybe they were able to get a job, and do it during the summers. So they want to see if that individual could potentially work full time at the jobs they've already tried. If they feel that they can't, they look to see if there's any other jobs in the national economy that someone could do. So that's the 5-step sequential process that Social Security looks at when they're determining if anyone is disabled, whether it's a young adult or anyone else coming to me to apply for disability. So I just wanted to point that out, that that's the way we go. I know that, there was a question earlier about how much they can earn. And so there is a limit, but sometimes we talk about whether or not their employer is making special accommodations. I have some employers here in Sauk County that are amazing. They hire a lot of young adults. They want to give them a chance. But for example, they're not able to maybe count change real well, so they don't put them on the cash register. Maybe there's other things that they're not capable of doing, but they're still paying them the exact same rate as someone else. Each one was hired for the same rate. And so if they are over that $1,550 gross, but they have special accommodations, I make sure that I get there's a form that has to be filled out by the employer to be submitted. So again, if your child is working but has special accommodations, it's still worth talking to a disability benefit specialist about applying for disability if you think that's something that your adult child is interested in or feels that, that could be beneficial.
Okay. Julie asked, if your child has Katie Beckett, do we have to do anything else at 18? Well, that's as far as Medicaid goes, not really, because Katie Beckett is and I'm talking specifically for these long-term care programs. Katie Beckett is a full benefit Medicaid that can be used during this transition process for Medicaid. But strictly, Katie Beckett is just Medicaid. It doesn't involve any of the programs. So I hope that answers that. And then Kathy asks, is the functional screen what also determines SSI eligibility? The answer is no. The functional screen that I was talking about only tests for eligibility for the long-term care programs. SSI is federal, and SSI does their own determination, and that's where you'll be working with somebody like Quinn or a disability benefit specialist to get that federal, that Social Security disability determination. So the functional screen, as I said, only relates to the long-term care programs that we're currently talking about. Okay. And then Julie asks, is it easier to get a disability determination as a child than as an adult? Quinn?
I can't answer that definitively because I don't work with children. I would love to be able to help, children. There isn't a lot of options for children to apply for disability and have, the parents pretty much call Social Security directly and have to do that. There's minimal resources, but I work with people 18 and over. I will tell you though that we will have sometimes, individuals who have that age 18 redetermination, and, the family completes it, sends it into Social Security, and then 6 months later, 7 months later, they hear back that, this young adult was not found disabled anymore. And of course, maybe, they all disagree with Social Security's decision. And so then I get involved to help with what's called an appeal or reconsideration. And so those are, I want to say fairly rare, but they do happen. A lot of times what I see is maybe the child had a diagnosis of ADD. And as an adult, maybe if that's the only diagnosis, well, as an adult, they're not going to see that as significant or as severe because they're not in a classroom, all day long. There's a lot of reasons why they would look at that differently. But many of the children's disabilities translate to the adult disability world as well.
Okay.
And many times children might be deemed disabled by Social Security, but because Social Security looks at all income coming into the home, they don't qualify for the cash payment for SSI because their parents are working. So that is part of the reason why Social Security will not let someone apply until the month after they turn 18 because they no longer then look at the parent's income and it's not counted as income coming in for SSI purposes.
Okay. We have one here, and this might be for you, Quinn, as well. Is it okay to transfer income from checking account when close to $2,000 asset limits, such as an ABLE account?
So I do very little with ABLE accounts. I think they're amazing. They're wonderful. But we haven't had a lot of training on them because we tell you just to contact, you can just Google ABLE accounts and you can get a lot of information in there. But yes, if someone is on SSI and you can't have more than $2,000 in assets, there are very specific rules about transferring money into an ABLE account, which then means that that young adult can remain on SSI and won't be over assets. So ABLE accounts and special needs trusts such as WISPACT or other special needs trusts are something that are really good to look into. And I do discuss that with families when they say, recently, grandma passed away and she left, my young adult child here with a disability $4,000. Well, they're over the $2,000 asset limit. They don't have any work history. So we talk about, well, can you spend that down on that adult child? I mean, are they looking at buying things for themselves? Do they need a new bed? Do they want a new iPad? Do they need a phone? Whatever the case may be. But if the answers are no to that, then we talk about, well, you could look at ABLE accounts or special needs trust. So again, there are options that we do discuss.
And I just wanted to quickly point out that we will be having someone in who does understand ABLE accounts and special needs trust on October 29th as part of Transition Talks Tuesday. So come on back and we will work on getting an answer to that question as well. Thank you so much, Quinn and Jim.
Absolutely. Okay, so kind of going back to this. So when we have determined that somebody has a Medicaid past the age of 18, again, usually Katie Beckett or Badger Care, and they've completed, the ADRC has completed that long-term care functional screen with them, and we say, yep, you're eligible. We sit down with you and your young adults, and we talk about the different options that you have within the long-term care programs universe. So here in Wisconsin, we have 4 different types of programs that people can pick from. We have family care, partnership, PACE, and IRIS. Now, the services that you can get in all of these programs is pretty much the same. It's how they're delivered and how the Medicaid works that really is the difference between them. So with family care, if you choose a family care program, and again, every county is different, okay? In our county, for example, in Sauk, we have 2 agencies that offer family care. When I sit down with somebody, I explain the family care program and give them the names of the 2 agencies that do that program. But with family care, you get a nurse and a care manager. Together, they work with you to determine what services that agency is going to pay for. And those services are going to be based on that person's needs. So that's family care. With family care, you have Medicaid, and it's kind of like a universal Medicaid in that you can go anywhere you want with that family care Medicaid. So you can go to any doctor, any hospital, any pharmacy you'd like to go to. So it's kind of universal Medicaid. Now, if somebody is choosing a partnership program, this family care is statewide. Partnership, though, is limited in the state of Wisconsin. I don't know the exact number of counties that offer partnership. Sauk is one of them. We do offer 2 partnership agencies. But if somebody chooses partnership, they actually get a nurse and a care manager, just like family care. However, in partnership, they also get medical case management. That's why they call it partnership. They partner the services case management along with the medical case management to give you kind of a wraparound program. Now, with partnership, you have Medicaid, but it's not universal like family care. Because you are getting medical case management, you need to go to those agencies, providers who they're contracted with. So their hospitals, their doctors, their pharmacies, you have to stay within network. Okay, so that for some people is a great thing if they need that medical case management, but it does limit you a little bit as to who you can see as a provider. The agencies in Sauk County, the 2 partnership agencies, have done a real good job with getting most of our medical providers in the area in their network. So people that pick partnership in our area are able to, in most cases, stay with their current provider. Now, I'd like to go into the other box there. And PACE and IRIS are what we call self-directed programs, meaning that you don't get a nurse or a care manager. You actually are the care team. You determine what services that you're going to get. Now, the state doesn't give you a blank check. What happens is when we do that functional screen and we determine your functional eligibility, that screen actually generates a dollar amount based on the cares that are identified on that screen. So then each month, if you choose a PACE or IRIS program, you get to use that dollar amount to purchase your own services. You don't get cash in hand. It actually goes to a company that manages the money, and then whoever you hire to provide care for you, you basically bill that agency through the program. But IRIS is self-direction. PACE, I believe, is only offered in Milwaukee and Waukesha counties. Don't quote me on that, but I know it's kind of in that area. So, but IRIS, however, is statewide. So, family care, the family care program and IRIS are both statewide programs, so every county offers those programs. Partnership and PACE are limited to what county you live in. So some offer them, some don't. Um, but with that being said, once you're determined eligible by the ADRC, you sit down with the ADRC worker that you're working with. They sit down and they explain all of their different programs, all of their different agencies. We do have some nice tools that we hand out that you can look at. And then it helps you make a decision as to what program you'd like. The biggest question that I get in these situations is, which one do you think I should go with? And the answer to that is I can't tell you. The whole point of this being county-based is that we are unbiased, meaning we have no stake in who you choose. So what I tell people is go with what you feel most comfortable with. You can't really make a wrong choice. And the reason I say that is because at any time, as long as you maintain your eligibility for these programs, meaning you have Medicaid and you pass the functional screen, you can switch programs at any time. So if you're in a family care program and you're not liking that agency, you can go to the other family care program, or you could go to partnership, or you could go to IRIS. And you can do that at any time. And that actually becomes the ADRC role once you've enrolled into a program. So the ADRC's role in enrolling you in these is just kind of upfront. We determine your eligibility and enroll you. Now, when you're working with the ADRC, as again, we really target that 17 years, 6 months as a starting point. The services through these programs will not start until that young adult is actually 18. Our hope is that we have that 6-month workup time to get that screen completed, confirm that we have Medicaid eligibility, and to sit down with you and talk to you about all your different options and you pick one. When you do that, then we get all of that information over to whatever agency you pick, and then that agency works with you to kind of get a care plan ready so that when you turn 18, we can just essentially flip the switch and you're up and running in a program. So that's why we really encourage people to get in touch with us at 17 years, 6 months. So does anybody have any questions about the long-term care programs? Okay, yep, I'm sorry, yep, and that would be, okay, so the question is, you said Medicare for the first two options, but what about the last two? Thank you for pointing that out. I want to point out, first of all, it's not Medicare, it's Medicaid, so there is a big difference there, but it is Medicaid. For PACE and IRIS, you are not locked into any HMO or anything. You have universal Medicaid with PACE and IRIS, just like you do with family care. The only area where Medicaid is limited is partnership because you get that nurse case manager that kind of manages your Medicaid or your health care. So with the second two, it is universal Medicaid, I believe. PACE, I want to take a step back and say I'm not 100% sure on PACE, but I can speak for IRIS 100% in that it is universal Medicaid with IRIS. Okay, any other questions at all about that? Okay. Any other questions at all? That kind of brings us to the end of our presentation. On your screen, you can see Wisconsin, and this is kind of a map of all the different ADRCs, and the colors that are consistent are consortiums, meaning there's a group of counties together to form one ADRC. But as I said, there is a local ADRC office in every county in the state. I do want to point out that we tried to be as general as possible, but each ADRC might do things a little bit differently, and we just want to point that out. So it is not cookie cutter throughout the state, but we try our best to kind of make it as general as possible. And I do also want to throw out there that the state of Wisconsin is working on a transition handbook. They developed a transition team. And over the past 2 years, we've been putting together this new workbook that's going to be coming out that's all about transition. So I know that's gone to publishing now, and that should hopefully be coming out, within the next couple months or so. So, okay, we have a couple questions here. Sarah asked, what is the initial ADRC intake process like? Is it similar to where UW students are scheduling the intake, or is this the screen or done locally? Well, the intake process is very simple. All you have to do is contact the ADRC. And what happens is you will be referred to one of the ADRC specialists or social workers. And then we would contact you to set up a time to kind of discuss the whole world of transition and finding out what we can do to assist. At that time, we may make referrals to people like Quinn or the disability benefits specialist. We may talk to you about legal decision making. And that can be done anytime after 17 years, 6 months. So it would be at your local ADRC office. And I do want to point out too that that residency does play a factor in what age ADRC you go to. And the reason I want to make that distinction is sometimes school districts, you may live in, let's say, Iowa County, but go to school in River Valley, which is in Sauk County. The ADRC is based on where you live. So it's not based on school districts or anything like that. So you would have to work with the county in which you live in. Okay, we got something here from another chat. Is there a consistent training for the different ADRC, as I got more information from you both today than I did weeks of meeting with ours? They kept referring me to look up the information myself. I'm sorry you've had that experience. I can't really speak for other ADRCs. Quinn, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Jim and I have been around a really long time.
Yeah.
So, and we have, and so, and we've come from other roles. For example, I was an ongoing social worker working with individuals who had intellectual disabilities from 18 until death, and I did that for almost 10 years before coming to the ADRC. So, it all depends. Like in Sauk County, all of the ADRC specialists, such as Jim and his counterparts, are licensed social workers. All of our disability benefit specialists and our elder benefit specialists are licensed social workers. But I can tell you that isn't the case in other counties. And so many times you have individuals who maybe are still learning themselves about Medicaid or Medicare or the disability process. And it is, you know, a lot to take in. I mean, I work with the Social Security Administration, and I'm an advocate for my consumers. And I can tell you that I'm not always well liked at the Social Security office because I'm questioning, you know, different things and asking questions. But if you have a newer worker, nothing against newer workers, but they may still be learning the process too, as to who does what. Is it, you know, is that my role? Is that Social Security's role? So again, I'm sorry you had that, that's what happened with you talking to your ADRC. Hopefully, you know, you still were able to get some information from us and you can take it back to your local ADRC and ask questions based on our training tonight.
Yeah, one thing that I've been a strong fighter for on the state level is training in transition for the ADRCs. And that quite honestly is one of the reasons why this workbook is coming out. And I think once we have that workbook in hand, it really spells out the different things that we talked about tonight. And I think hopefully with that being out there, it might be a nice outline, as to how the ADRC and other ADRCs, can help, the people in their county. So I'm hoping that, is kind of like an outline, for that. But I've been a real big fighter. Quinn can attest to this, for transition trading throughout the state because it's not all the same in every county. So.
And we are right here and encouraging Jim to continue and Quinn to continue that fight. Because it is really, I guess I use a light word, annoying, that there are these differences between the ADRCs when the services are the same. And I feel bad for some families. Good question for, okay, so first, is there going to be an announcement? I think I've been like doing some editing on that document. I'll get emails and they're like, how does this do with healthcare? And I'm like, okay, yeah, well, do you have any idea when they're planning to announce that, Jim?
Well, I'm hoping soon. We did it's actually been published by a publisher, by a writer. And last I heard it's going to publishing. So I can tell you that when it is out, contact your local ADRC, they will have it. So what I would suggest
I will
doing.
also let you all know that if you did not say, hey, don't put me on your emailing list, you are my emailing list. And so when I know it's out there, you will know that it's out there.
Yeah, and you'll be able to get it from the ADRC.
Yeah.
So,
And Kathy has a question about autism. She's like, autism is a big spectrum. Some kids appear very functional, but social emotional gaps are still there. Is it tricky qualifying for SSI? I will tell you, I work with a lot of young adults on the autism spectrum. And yes, sometimes we will have, a young adult who appears very functional and may be found not disabled at initial. However, we always appeal that. And it's, the schools do the IEPs and all of that. And yes, they focus on the strengths. That's wonderful. But when you come meet with me, we focus on the things that your young adult cannot do, which can be very difficult for that young adult to be sitting in my office, talking about or hearing that. But I also ask families to do advocacy letters, have teachers do advocacy letters, anyone who's involved with them do advocacy letters about the fact that maybe, they appear that they're functioning well, but maybe, they have a lot of natural supports because many young adults do. And so we talk about the things they can't do. And many times I'll just ask for advocacy letters, which do help make the case a little stronger at the initial application. But I always say if you're denied at initial, definitely look at appealing. I help with appeals as well.
And then could you talk at all about any experience with like mental health and autism or mental health, singularly? So I know that some people will just not look for help because they have a mental health diagnosis and they may be able to get help as well.
And that's Julie had mentioned about, her daughter having depression and anxiety and not being able to attend school in person for months. And yes, this definitely will help. When I meet with someone, when I get the referral, I talk to the family usually on the phone because it's prior to 18 typically, because we really push for families to contact us at 17 years, 6 months. So I get that referral before 18. And those are the questions I ask. Again, I've been doing this as a disability benefit specialist for almost 11 years now. And so I do ask questions about, how are they functioning at school? Are they working? How do they function at home? All of those things. And so if you have a disability benefit specialist who isn't asking that because they're newer or they just aren't, sure what to be asking, they don't want to offend, someone by asking questions, feel free to say, look, my child suffers not only, from depression and anxiety, but also has this, autism diagnosis and is really struggling, can't even attend school, and make sure that they're putting that in the notes. Have something, you can do an advocacy letter saying that as well. I'm glad that was helpful. So.
Okay, anything else that anybody has?
Oh.
All right, then. I did put a short feedback link in the chat. If on your way out, you could click that into your next screen and then go give us a little bit of feedback. Jim and Quinn, thank you as usual. At this point, if you guys ever decide to move on and retire, please let me know. I want to bring cake because you guys do such a great job. I really appreciate the way and the information that you provide for our families. Always a pleasure having you on. So thank you all very much for being here this evening. Let me do a quick check here. We will not be back until October the 15th, when we'll be talking about supported decision making and guardianship. So hopefully you've registered for that one. As soon as I'm able to, which it may not be a while, folks, so don't email me. I'm going to be out of the office for a week or so. As soon as I can, I'll get the YouTube loaded up and the resource sheet sent out along with the slides. Again, thank you all very much. Have a great night.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.